Welcome to the Cincy Postcast, powered by Gold Star, Cincinnati's favorite match day meal. I'm Kevin Wallace, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you about our friends over at Streetside Brewery. Now, Streetside has been with us all season long, and if you've been over there, you know why we've been so happy to have them along for the ride. They are just an awesome brewery over on the east side of Cincinnati. The tap room is a perfect mixture of a modern brewery, but then you combine that with a neighborhood watering hole vibe. It's a really, really good time. And what I really love about them is their sense of community. A couple events coming up this weekend. You've got Queen City Fulham watch party at 10 a.m. watching Wolves. Yerson Mosquera's club there. It's a good time. Love that Queen City Fulham has found Streetside to be their home bar. If you're looking for a Premier League team to get behind, Fulham's a fantastic one and a classic one for Americans to get behind. Some good history there. And also on Sunday, this is why I love Streetside, they are doing a Pouring for Neighbors fundraiser for Western North Carolina for the communities that are still impacted by Hurricane Helene. You can go check them out there. 15% of sales being donated to the charity in need. So, you get a drink. I believe they're doing a split the pot and a raffle. So go grab yourself a drink, go raise some money for a good cause. They're good people over there over at Streetside. Tell them we sent you and see what happens. So now, huge thank you to Streetside for sponsoring this episode. And thank you, dear listener, for picking them up the next time you're grabbing beer for a get together. And on today's episode, well, there is weirdly a lot of FC Cincinnati news to talk about. Okay, there's a lot going on. Lucho Acosta popped up in the funniest place imaginable. What's the latest on Kevin Denkey? Why hasn't he been announced yet? We get to the bottom of that. What's going on with Luca Orellano's home team? His loaning team? There was a press conference, and there's a little bit to unpack there. Okay, there's a lot of FC Cincinnati news. Then in part two, it's Patreon questions. Some of my favorite questions, including grocery shopping and inspirational quotes. So you put that all together, you got yourselves a very lovely postcast. And joining me to talk about all of that and more, I've got two gentlemen who have finally settled in to the off-season mode that is the postcast, joined by the Chief, joined by Grayson. Chief, how does the off-season find you?
I don't know that it's quite hit yet because there was no other MLS action going on this week. There was no other club soccer happening. So it's easy to be out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Like everyone's on an off season this weekend, thanks to the glorious, incredibly stupid schedule that MLS runs that runs up into this November international window. And also just the stupidity of why is there an international window right now? Like what possible justification is there to have international games being played? Like, okay, the United States got to play Jamaica for like the 500th time in the last 3 years. Like, it feels like every other month we're taking an international break for the USA to play fucking Jamaica. Like, I don't understand what this is doing, what this is accomplishing. So yeah, maybe I have settled into the off season now that I think about it.
Making it's this just, time to pay the daddy tax.
Yeah.
FIFA needs their money.
Can we just take more dollars?
By the way, I want to point out. So you talked about MLS taking off for the international window. So occasionally there'll be an article about because MLS does play through some international windows. They take off others, etc. Blah blah blah. You know who had games through this international window?
Serie A, I believe, right?
South American leagues. So is like the Brazilian league, Bush League for like playing through an international window. I guess I just like there's a flattening when it comes to how when people compare MLS to international soccer, where it's like they're like, oh, quote unquote Europe, right? Even though not all of Europe plays through the winter, but the European schedule is through the winter,
right?
But also, like when MLS plays through an international window, it's like, oh, well, like no serious league would do this. Well, like, is Brazil Serie A serious league?
Right.
You know, is the Argentina league a serious league? And it's just like I think that the average, because like the average American soccer fan, myself in this category for sure, has very little understanding of like the ins and outs of world soccer outside of the Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A,
right?
Italian Serie A,
Italian Serie A,
La Liga, right? If you watch international soccer, it's teams in those leagues for the most part. If you're listening to this and you're like, well, you know, I watch Hajduk Split, awesome, love it, good for you. Not talking about you.
Yeah, you are not the typical American soccer fan. Like you are, you're not part of this conversation.
But, you know, I think that the international soccer is more different from each other than people tend to understand. So like when MLS does something different, it's not necessarily true that MLS is the only league that does it this way. Like MLS is not the only league that plays a kind of spring fall schedule.
Nope. Famously, there's a southern hemisphere in on this planet.
Famously, there's northern European countries.
Yeah. It's like 10 countries in Europe that do that.
MLS is not the only league that occasionally plays through international windows, right? So that's I always think it's interesting when people like make these like grand pronouncements about like what MLS is or isn't or whatever. And like, I think it's unfortunate that this international window falls in the middle of the MLS playoffs. It doesn't have to be that way.
No. If only there was a way to play games in the month of August that might shorten the season by a month, and we would have the playoffs concluded prior to this break, or this could be the 1 week break ahead of MLS Cup or something reasonable like that.
Or you could take a break. Like you could have MLS Cup before the window. You could take a break for the international window and you can play Leagues Cup for the amount of time that the rest of the MLS playoffs would go.
Yeah. You could be playing Leagues Cup during the MLS playoffs, the preliminary rounds for teams that aren't in the MLS Cup playoffs. And those teams join in the knockout rounds if you made MLS Cup. Like that would be.
You'd give the teams that were knocked out of the playoffs a reason to keep watching the product because those teams will eventually be your competitors in Leagues Cup. No, Chief, you brought up the Leagues Cup. It made me think again of Brazil. They are the country that does their weird state leagues as well. And I understand, you know, there's some
Brazil
great
has
history
like 75 different tournaments that teams play in.
But, you know, if somebody came up with like, oh, we're going to do regional tournaments in the U.S. and MLS is going to host all of these regional teams, everybody would call that a stupid cash grab as well. Right. So like, I don't know.
To be fair, like I have decided, and I decided this when I made the decision not to watch the U.S. men's national team game last week. I hate regionalism. I hate this. Like there was a post, I think Matt Doyle put it up asking, why is there no juice around the U.S. men's national team right now? And the answer I came to is I'm sick of playing these CONCACAF teams. I just don't care about playing Jamaica or Costa Rica or Panama for the billionth time. Like every 25 years or pick a date, they need to just shuffle what confederation everyone's a part of. And I don't care if that means more flying or you have to like go other places. Cool, whatever. It's just I am so bored with the same 8 CONCACAF matchups over and over and over again. There's nothing new there for me. The only one that ever brings any excitement is Mexico, because that's the only other team that's even on close to the United States' level. Every other game, it's just, you're just looking to avoid gross disappointment from losing.
Yeah.
And this federation sucks. And the United States has kind of outgrown it. Mexico outgrew it a long time ago. Let's shuffle the deck. The hell with it. Let's, even if you don't want to do the whole like transatlantic flight stuff, every so often, you know, have UEFA and Africa shuffle up some teams, and, you know, teams might have to fly a little further north, south for some of these games. North and South America shuffle these teams, but it's just, it is so dull to, I can't stress enough how much I don't give a fuck about watching the U.S. play Jamaica ever again. They could never play Jamaica for the rest of my adult life, and I would not miss the matchup because it seems like they play every other month.
Chief, I don't know what you're talking about. Jamaica is calling up a player from the 3rd division of the UAE for this second leg.
Cool.
Aren't you rattling your boots there?
What's frustrating about this whole, about it is it's not, God, I hate to say this, it's not entirely U.S. soccer's fault.
That hurt to say, didn't it?
It's funny. It's almost not even FIFA's fault. I don't know the origin story, but I'm pretty sure it's not even FIFA.
It's hard to schedule European competition because Europe is also doing a Nations League.
It's these stupid Nations
Leagues. And like, I'm sure there's a way around it. Probably part of it would require the national team to like travel to Europe and like try to find, you know, some teams that are willing to squeeze in a game or like don't have a game that window or something. But which I'm not against, because I think it's like I know the US soccer wants to host games because they want the money.
Yeah.
But as somebody who, it's not my money, I'm happy to like have the US team travel if that's what it takes to play tougher competition. Plus, like a lot of the A-teamers are already over in Europe, right? So it's like kind of convenient for them. But I will say that they're, because of all the Nations Leagues, because Africa's doing AFCON qualifying, the options of good teams outside of the region to schedule that you could schedule friendlies against right now are it's tougher. I'm not saying, I don't know if it's impossible. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it certainly is tougher, and it's tougher for reasons that aren't just because CONCACAF is doing its own Nations League. No, or just because U.S. soccer wants to host games.
No, I get that. Like, I would rather watch the U.S. men's national team scrimmage Miami than watch them play fucking Jamaica again. Because you know what? Like,
that's a great idea.
They're going to play Jamaica in Nations League. Is the Gold Cup this summer? Because when the next time the Gold Cup comes, they're going to play fucking Jamaica in the Gold Cup again. I'm just sick of watching Jamaica, like any other goddamn team.
I will tell you, if U.S. soccer was playing friendlies this window against Miami and Columbus, I'm watching those games.
I'm watching the hell out of those games.
Way more fun.
Like, I'm watching the hell out of that. Just on the off chance that Columbus beats the national team, and watching all the people with the American flag emojis in their profiles have to deal with the fact that an MLS team beat their golden children of Europe. Oh, I'm all for that.
I'm not sure that the U.S. men's national team beats FC Cincinnati or Columbus Crew.
Yeah, no, or even Miami. I think it's tough. I think it's a tough out for
Miami.
US.
Miami has a very bad defense.
Yep.
But so does the men's national team.
Right. Tim Ream isn't exactly formidable when they've got Messi on the other side.
Watching Tim Ream turn around in circles like he's trying to figure out who like tapped him on the shoulder.
While a USL player is making him look amateur. I don't know what is allowed in this space, but like surely they could organize a friendly against the French B team or the English B team. Like, I don't know exactly how motivated those teams would be, but surely if you got called up to the French B team, you'd want to show out for your argument to be included in the full national team.
Well, that's the European teams they get in the January window.
Right.
When like Serbia comes, it's like
Can't
whatever
domestically,
whatever Serbian play. They're usually like domestic Serbian players or players who are bench players for teams that are happy to release happy to release them to get some game time.
Germany does a winter break. We could get like Dortmund over here for a USA friendly.
Maybe they should do the international window during the winter break. I don't know. But yeah, I don't like, I'm with Chief though. I don't like the growth of these nations leagues and the emphasis on like more regional competition. Like the windows are useless. Honestly, the Mexico game is becoming more meaningless with the amount of like they should never have a friendly against Mexico. Never, ever, ever.
But they play them all the time. Every single time. Yeah. Every single one of these domestic tournaments, the U.S. plays Mexico all the time. And it's like
they'll play Mexico like 3 times in 4 months, right? And it'll be like didn't they lose to Mexico recently in a friendly?
I don't even know. I don't even care. Like they happen so often.
That one doesn't matter, right? But it's like it. And so like if Mexico wins the friendly, but then US wins in Gold Cup and then wins in Nations League, it's like those are the ones that matter or whatever. There's like gradations, and I don't want to have a game against Mexico that doesn't matter. I just don't. Like I only want to play them in tournaments. And I only want to play them in the Gold Cup in World Cup qualifying, which I know I know we don't do qualifying for this next World Cup, but
I don't need to see any of these CONCACAF teams at all. Unless it's Gold Cup and World Cup qualifying. I don't need to see them. That's enough of these teams. I don't need to keep playing them over and over again. And look, I'm sure this setup works great for UEFA, where they get to keep their own little island of games unto themselves. And I'm sure it works great in South America. These teams suck in CONCACAF. I'm sorry. It's bad soccer.
Well, even UEFA, you have like Gibraltar, San Marino.
Yeah.
I think I saw like Austria or somebody was playing Luxembourg this week. Like they're not getting anything out of that.
No, it's not fun. And like back in the late 90s, I want to say it was early 2000s, Australia used to play in the Oceania Confederation, and they basically outgrew it and joined Asia. And now they are a part of Asia and New Zealand, sort of the top dog over there in the ocean.
Well, because Oceania didn't get a guaranteed spot in the World Cup.
Right.
So like the winner of Oceania has to play
like a playoff against CONCACAF,
like the fifth CONCACAF team or the 5th South America team or somebody.
Yeah.
And Australia moved to Asia because Asia has multiple automatic qualifying slots, and Australia is a strong enough national team.
They did pretty well.
I think that they are going to be competitive. They're not the best team in Asia by any means, but like they're competitive and they have a good shot of getting into those qualifying spots on any given cycle.
Yeah. I think the US and Mexico should look at just joining CONMEBOL and just join South America and just leave CONCACAF behind. It would give more opportunities to the Caribbean nations. It would give more opportunity to Canada in this case, although I could maybe see Canada having to be a package deal. But yeah, I think we've outgrown it, and I think we should make the bid, because then it's not Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions League. Then it's Copa Libertadores and Leagues Cup, which is actually a compelling argument.
Copa America.
Well, no, I'm talking the leagues, the club competition.
Oh, yeah.
So then there's a compelling argument for keeping the Mexico-US Cup competition and having the broader trans-America club competition.
Right, because Leagues Cup is currently totally redundant of CONCACAF Champions League, but like worse.
Right. But now it would make sense to have that little bit of regional flair, but then also get to play like a Ecuadorian team and a Bolivian team and stuff like that. It'd be fun.
There's already precedence for this because shitty South American teams are already in CONCACAF. Like Suriname is in CONCACAF.
Yep. Culturally, they're Caribbean. How dare you?
Sure. Neat. Whatever it takes to shake it up.
French Guiana.
Yes.
CONCACAF.
There's 3 of them. Suriname, French Guiana, which
and
Emery.
Is it Guyana
which one does,
and French Guiana?
Which one does French Montana play in?
I say Emery Welshman scored for one of them in
I think Guyana.
Yeah, in a Gold Cup qualifying match. So there you go.
Yeah, neat.
Boy.
So we're all excited about this match on Saturday in St. Louis, right?
Sure.
The return flight.
Is it? When is this game?
I think it's
Tomorrow?
Tuesday or Wednesday or Monday.
Okay. Monday, I think it's Monday. Monday Night Football.
Did Miles play?
He did not. I did not watch.
I did not watch either.
I think
Vasquez
Brandon did.
Yeah, Vasquez subbed in. We hired Pochettino and we can only beat Jamaica 1-0.
It's at Jamaica. By the way, that's as many. I saw a stat.
Oh, yeah.
That's as many
road
victories as Berhalter had.
I'm going to assume Berhalter only had like 3 opportunities in a quote unquote meaningful match. But
he had a bunch of he had a whole World Cup qualifying cycle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Fair enough. 2 World Cup qualifying cycles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I mean, if we did leave CONCACAF, it would mean leaving the magic of the hexagonal.
No, he just had 1 qualifying cycle.
Did we? Oh, okay.
Because we don't qualify, because he was hired again. This would have been his second cycle.
We don't
have to do qualifying.
Okay. Sorry. Well, there you go. Yeah, I could not care less about this. But I do find it funny that we're still right where we were. I don't know.
Right.
It's just like the longer this goes, the better Berhalter looks. I
was just fascinated by Doyle's question of why is there no juice regarding the U.S. men's national team? And you get the usual battery of responses like, oh, the performance hasn't been great. The online environment is toxic, yada, yada. It's just like, no, we're overlooking the obvious, man. Like there's only so many times you can keep going back to the well with some of these games. And yeah, whatever. Yeah.
The pool of teams is very small. CONCACAF is huge, but it's not like we're playing St. Vincent and the Grenadines all the time. It's the handful
Feels
of like
way.
8 countries.
Yeah.
No, it's Costa Rica, Jamaica, Honduras, Panama. Yeah. It's like, and Trinidad and Tobago. And that's it. That's the whole kit and caboodle. Canada, Mexico, and that's the whole thing. Look, we do have a little bit of FC Cincinnati news to touch on. And I gotta start with what was easily the funniest thing to come out over the weekend. And that was
funny in the best way. Like we're used to a lot of like funny in like the, oh my God, this again. This is funny in the absolute best possible way.
So let me set this up and ask a question at the same time to you, Chief. Does Lucho Acosta appearing at the pregame Cincinnati Cyclones siren warner of the match introducer of the game, does Lucho Acosta appearing at this increase or decrease the odds that he comes back in 2025?
I mean, it is harder to be more all in on the city of Cincinnati than showing up to a Cincinnati Cyclones game. Like that is, I mean, there's levels to everything in life. And, if level number 1 is not only liking Cincinnati chili, but having a preference on what your favorite Cincinnati chili is, the answer is Gold Star, obviously. If number 2 is being able to identify between Fritz and Fiona on site at the zoo, number 3 has to be I have attended a Cincinnati Cyclones game and enjoyed myself in the process. That's up there. It's tied probably with actively rooting for a high school team as a grown adult. Like it's pretty. So, I mean, you can tell me he's closed this chapter of his life and says that he's ready to move on and he has other things to accomplish. this doesn't scream a man that's done with Cincinnati.
I believe I skeeted from the Post's Blue Sky account that he was speed running his Cincinnati bucket list. How do you feel about this development, Grayson? Are you back in on Lucha's coming back, or?
Well, look, I was always in the camp of Lucho is excitable.
That is true.
You don't say.
He always says all kinds of things. He ponders his future constantly
and publicly.
I was also in the camp of, the team's indicated it was willing to splash a lot of cash, and maybe he feels like his raise should have been bigger. We've heard other reasons, like personal reasons for why he might be interested in going down to South America sooner rather than later. I would say if my feeling is if those personal reasons were pressing, I'm not sure that if I had pressing personal reasons to be in another country, I'm not sure being invited to a Cyclones game would would cause me to hold off on that. I do I like that he was able to be there with his best good friends, Yamil Assad and Luca Orellano.
Yeah, which I should have mentioned they were there as well.
And look, I think there's a lot of folks who are assuming he's gone. It does seem
one of those people might be Lucho Acosta, to be clear, based on everything he said.
But what's he doing there?
Right.
I think that there has been at least in the sicko contingent of the fan base, it has turned a bit where now the prevailing view is that he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But the economics of it just don't add up to me yet.
Yeah.
They just don't. And the explanation for the explanation he gave for why he would want out doesn't add up. We've already gone through it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's just not true. There's no rational reason for it.
There's a rational reason for it. He hadn't been to a Cyclones game yet and really didn't understand the full breadth of what Cincinnati has to offer.
He hadn't met Puck Chop yet. So.
Yeah, that this is Puck Chop or Twister or, all of the family-friendly things that the Cyclones do that make it such an institution in our local sports community. I mean, the next step is for him to get out there with the boys on $2 beer night and build himself a pyramid down in the corner by the glass.
Hell yeah.
We did have Tom Bogert this week saying it is categorically false that FC Cincinnati tried to shop Lucho in the summer.
Yeah, duh, but I'm glad somebody else said it out loud.
Right. Well, somebody who talked to somebody who worked for the team and told them that, right?
Yeah.
Versus just using your common sense, which is all that we ever do.
You are, and that's a good point, and we'll touch on it with the next story as well. You're allowed to use your common sense to figure out if a rumor is true.
Well, this is a little bit more than a rumor, right?
Well, yes, yes.
But all the blank filling people are doing, you do need to bring your common sense to the table.
Yes.
As far as him being mad about moving people on, for example, the only argument you can make about treatment of players is that they were not moved on fast enough.
Or in the middle of the successful season.
Because that was the whole thing with Barreal, forcing his way out, is that he wanted to move sooner and it didn't come.
Yeah.
And then it's now I have to go to Brazil.
Yeah, I have to.
And
No choice.
Vasquez, is not getting a move to Europe and then having to go to Mexico, which
damn, I got to make 3x my salary.
Right.
This sucks.
And it's like, so that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like,
or express that feeling earlier. That was a year ago.
Right.
Have this tantrum last off season.
Right. So it does it does lead me to believe that there is a personal reason that he's talking about this now. But also, if you were talking about so one, pushing for more money, people always want more money, whatever.
Sure.
Two, if there's a personal reason, but also if there's a personal reason, it could just be sometimes you just need to express something, but not actually do it.
Act on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So but I'm not gonna go into that at all. The whatever, but
yeah,
we've already mentioned that that's just not an area that we're gonna tread here. But I don't know. If he wants to go make $800,000 at Boca Juniors, have fun, man.
Yeah.
No Cyclones there.
But Boca's not gonna give us $6 million.
No, and it's not clear Lucho would start for Boca right now.
If he wants to go to Saudi, have fun, man. But I'm just trying to see who's giving us a transfer fee for Lucho.
Yeah, it's the one thing where obviously ownership wants to recoup.
Who's paying him
as
upwards
much
of $4 million?
That's the sticking point you're going to have. I do think that if Lucho was desperate to leave, I don't know that the team had ever sort of earmarked a profit on his exit ever. And so if somebody gave you $2 million and took his salary off the books, that's pretty okay.
But it's not just. But the team didn't earmark him leaving in 2025 either.
Right.
So if Lucho leaves in 2020 before the 2025 season, you now have to bring another designated player in. So it's not just do we make a profit on Lucho? It's
you're taking a loss by having to replace him.
Yes. Where does the $10 million or whatever in transfer fee come plus salary to replace him?
Right.
I'm not saying they don't have it, but
they just weren't budgeting it. Yeah.
Part of budget is we don't have to pay that much money for a number 10
right
this year because we have one.
Yeah, look at us.
Maybe he just saw the numbers being thrown around in that Tom Bogert story.
Yeah.
That were being offered to Sargent and McKinney or Bertarame and was wait, they're offering these losers this much money?
I don't remember if I do think that we brought this up at the time.
Yeah, I think we did.
I don't 100%. I can't timestamp it, but I do know that I thought about it when I was
especially
when I was especially McKinney, right? Where it's you're really going to pay $20 million in transfer fee and $10 million in salary or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And have your precious emotional MVP on less than half of that.
Right. You could make the argument for Sargent or Bertarame, as a compliment to Lucho. McKinney is kind of playing Lucho's spot on this team. So yeah, that would have been something else too.
My real question,
Sargent, you paying Sargent more than Lucho?
Yeah, no, that would be a problem.
Be absurd. My real question is, how terrifying would Lucho be as a hockey player if he knew how to skate?
He's so small, it'd be hard to hit.
Yeah. Everything going between the legs, just nutmegs out the door with the hockey puck. It's so much easier to nutmeg someone with a hockey puck than it is with a soccer ball.
What was the guy's name in the guy from Miami in Mighty Ducks?
Oh,
Richie, Benny.
I don't
They
remember.
had like a Lucho in D2.
Yeah.
yeah.
But Lucho, grown
couldn't
adult
stop.
Lucho. Yeah. Neither would Lucho. Lucho wouldn't be able to stop either. It would just be full speed around the rink. It'd be great. Plus, on skates, he would almost be the height of a normal person.
That's true. He would enjoy the extra couple of inches there.
I hope he had fun. I hope he enjoyed his hockey experience, though.
Yeah, it
And
looked fun.
if Lucho's listening out there, we can make a list of other things to do in Cincinnati you might not have thought of that might rekindle your love of this great city we call home.
Yeah. Or, things you got to check off the bucket list before you leave. We'll help you out.
Yeah. Also, if Lucho's listening, nobody cares. Like you might feel like you said something and you like need to stick to, nobody cares.
Right.
Yeah. You're
for a city
most people don't even know.
Yeah. For a city that specializes in setting bridges on fire, we're remarkably affable when it comes to, you coming back after doing that.
You can come back.
Yeah.
No one's it'll be like it will shock you how much this never happened.
Yeah. What happened? I'm already ready to forgive. I don't care.
Hey, Corey Dillon ruled the jungle earlier this season, so anything is possible. Okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of big money transfers for strikers, Kevin Denkey is still not done. The Togo international playing at Cercle Bruges. He's been the subject of a couple of new rumors since the last time we talked about this. The reliability of these reports are certainly up for questioning, but according to some corners of the internet, he is not completely out of the picture at Lille. And other folks are saying that this is absolute rumor mongering and gossip, and that to FCC, to MLS is a done deal. It's not entirely clear what's holding things up. We know he was in town. We know the CEO of Cercle Bruges was in town. This is old reporting. I don't think we get that far if things aren't pretty close to being done and dusted. The paperwork does have to get to MLS league offices at some point. So I'm not entirely clear what the holdup is there. So I don't know what else there is to say about this other than just keep an eye out for the Lille rumors, or I suppose it's potential that another team could pop up. I saw somebody, totally random person, replying to a totally different story about Tottenham looking at different players in the Netherlands. And they mentioned to this reporter any truth to the Kevin Denkey rumors. Again, I don't know what corner of Tottenham internet this person is getting this from, but I wouldn't be shocked if other teams have had their eye on Denkey for some time here. But yeah, I don't know, Grayson, at what point does this not getting done begin to concern you?
I don't think that the other, so there were other stories like that holdover, like from the summer of like various teams looking at him. None of that seems to be recent. The Lille thing concerns me only because it does look like Jonathan David will move.
Yeah.
And then Denkey previously played in Ligue 1, and it would be a good spot for any player.
Yeah. Speaks French, all that good stuff.
The economics, I don't know, like I don't really know what Lille's economics look like. But we've had a couple of big teams in France, get relegated for financial reasons. I mean, Leon has been, at least for the time being, administratively relegated.
Yeah. I don't believe they have a league-wide broadcast partner for their league rights. And I think that is starting to sink some of these teams that were teetering. In the past, the Qatari-owned BN has helped them out, and I don't believe they are doing that now.
So, but and also, like, the longer it goes without getting done, I do think the odds go down, because I think we have a bit of an advantage from being able to enter an agreement today, whereas Lille probably has to move David before they can before they can sign him. So, like, they can't move him now. So, we can get a deal done in the near term. Tom Bogert talked about it. He's still, as of I think Thursday, on Soccer Wise, was talking about his expectation that it does get done. And he said that when he reported that FC Cincinnati was in talks with Denkey, he got unprompted texts from, I don't know if he said GMs, but from people in front offices at other teams who, like, couldn't believe it. And they were talking about it as, like, a league changing move to get a player of that,
because of his age.
Because of his age,
and
like,
the price.
His age was a big part of it. His profile, the fact that he would be competitive for some big moves in Europe.
Yeah.
And Bogert did confirm that it would be at least a top 3 incoming transfer in MLS history. If not, I guess if it happens, we'll see. We'll get a number, hopefully, and find out that if it is the biggest transfer. But I think we talked about, the qualities that would make this like a really special move. But just to hear like Tom talk about it on the show and what people around the league, how they're characterizing it.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. And I really this excites me more than any of the moves that were talked about in the summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is in a different tier.
Yeah. You're getting a guy who is in ascendancy as opposed to already a finished product. I put 0 stock in the Lille rumors. I put less than 0 stock in them. And this is why.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to hear.
Number one, from what I had heard, you can take this or leave it for whatever it is, the teams that were sniffing around him that were our primary competition were Dortmund and Wolves. So it wasn't, as far as I can have put together, there wasn't a shot he was going to Ligue 1 under any circumstances with those other teams.
Dortmund and Wolves.
Look at us.
I'm sorry. I have a hard time believing that.
Okay. I said you can believe it or you can not believe it.
Yeah. I'm choosing to believe it.
I'm not.
I like that.
I am not saying you didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I am saying that if
you
Dortmund
don't believe
Wolves,
the accuracy of the information.
Yeah. I am saying that if Dortmund and Wolves are on the table, I don't know, you're going to fucking Dortmund. Are you kidding me?
Depends on what you're offered. If you're 23 years old, you want to play. And if it's a choice between going to Dortmund and maybe sitting the bench and stifling your development, we saw that happen with we've seen this happen with some American players where they make a bad choice in their development and it sets them back.
And I do think that the team having to agree on a transfer fee is also an important component, right? Because if Dortmund and Wolves are we'll do it for 6,
right,
and FC Cincinnati is we'll pay
double,
triple. We'll pay triple,
right?
The team is well, I think we're going to go this way.
The other thing you got to remember too is that when you're out there cruising for rumors and seeing what's being written out there, number one, and this is harder when you're talking about foreign language media than it is in the United States. In the United States, it's a little easier to figure this out. But in foreign language media, they have the same problem we do on social media, and that's that there are a lot of aggregator reports that keep recycling old stories and old sources and sometimes just nonsense, where everything traces back to a single point of bullshit. But it repeats itself often enough that it lends an air of, oh, there's a lot of people talking. Many people are saying.
Yes.
The other thing, too, to remember, and this is just good practice whenever you're on, especially the Bird app, it is set up so that if over the course of your account's lifetime, within the past 3 months, you do 5 million impressions, you have the ability to turn on monetization for your account. And the X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, sends you a check every month based on your impressions once you reach a certain threshold. And there are a lot of accounts out there that exist solely to generate clicks, generate impressions, and make money for whoever it is that is running the account. And if that means that you keep recycling and resourcing rumors that do good traction and do clicks, and that like, okay, here's a big money move to Cincinnati. How can I keep this going? I can report I can aggregate Tom Bogert's report of a move to Cincinnati. And then once the interest has been piqued in this, I can aggregate another report that may have wildly different levels of veracity or truthfulness that has him going to another place.
Yep.
And it's just a cycle with a lot of these accounts. It's honestly made the platform unusable, the number of accounts that exist solely to aggregate content for the sake of the monetization levels for impressions on Twitter. So I don't believe it. I don't believe 90% of what I read on the internet. The best source that is reporting anything right now is Tom Bogert. And the reason why he's the best source is because the way he gets information is usually only when things are either official or on the cusp of being official, because they have been reported to the place he used to work, which is the league office. Yeah. So
I'm not sure he's reported very many deals that didn't get done. He has reported deals that didn't get done after they didn't get done.
Yeah.
Right. Like the article he wrote about our summer window. He had a tweet about Malcolm Jang, who we had looked at in the summer, but obviously didn't sign. I don't know. Like,
that's
certainly nothing
question.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's something, because you know, no matter how good your information is, sometimes you get something. But I have not heard him. Nothing. I guess I can't recall him saying like a deal with an MLS team for a specific player was being finalized or close.
Right.
That didn't then get done.
Yeah, I'm sure he has talked about some speculative things, but he's always made sure to say that this was, early talks or one of a potential targets. Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point.
He's usually pretty careful about how he couches that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then again, like, I'm not sure I can remember a time where he's like linked a specific player.
Yeah.
I don't know. Especially if he's using like close or finalizing, that type of language.
But on top of that, we know from, the story covering the summer window that wasn't, he's got a pretty good line into the FCC war room. So he could probably double check with them. He's not just going to go out on a limb. He's reaching out to Albright or somebody within the office and saying, hey, any truth to this? And they go, yeah, we love this dude. Looks like it's happening. And there you go.
The other thing that Bogert did is he like us likened this to like the Cucho signing. It does bear a lot of similarities. It is different in other ways too, but like, everyone's a unique snowflake. So
yeah. Kevin Denkey in the international break scored for Togo. They won their game against Equatorial Guinea, and it doesn't matter. They did not qualify for African Cup of Nations, but good to see he's out there scoring. We can only assume it's because he's in a positive mood because he's getting a big old pay raise.
He must be excited about his upcoming good spirits.
He's already been texting with Lucho about, hockey games they can go to.
Yep. That would be such a strong move to have the Cyclones bring Kevin Denkey to do the next home game siren call.
It's like the Pittsburgh Pirates thing with the rookie card for screens, where we're offering you 30 years of seats behind home plate if you donate this card back to our Hall of Fame museum. We just need the Cyclones to offer 2 on the glass to Lucho and whoever he wants to bring with him as his buddy going forward. And, that's a great incentive package to remain here in the 513. You can blow the siren whenever you want, even if we're playing. It's minor league hockey. Who gives a shit? You can go up and blow the siren whenever, wherever.
I love it. All right. There was another very funny story involving FC Cincinnati player since the last time we talked. And that was Vasco da Gama's manager, was it? Had a press conference where he seemed to be just absolutely ranting and raving about the idea that Luca Orellano is going to be a permanent fixture in FC Cincinnati's roster for way too little money. They seem furious about the deal that was struck.
And I think also the general manager or somebody from the front office was there.
Yeah.
Because the way I think this has worked, and Grayson, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that the outgoing or the last management team for Vasco negotiated the deal for Luca, and they have since hired a new management or leadership team at the organization. And the person at the desk was talking about how he was reading the agreement with Cincinnati and said, I saw terms and conditions in there I've never seen before in my life.
So good.
Where, look, absolutely know that Chris Albright was deep in his bag writing this contract. And shout out to whoever it is at whatever, big law firm it was, or whoever at the in-house counsel for FC Cincinnati that drafted this agreement up, because apparently it perplexed a long-standing traditional club in South America.
If Vasco da Gama is seeing terms they've never seen before, you're doing something fucking insane. That is a storied franchise. That is a team that has dealt with all of the European teams. That is something else.
So if there's any doubt whatsoever as to the business acumen of one Chris Albright, that should put this to bed right here immediately, because he triggered an entire front office of having to look back over the course of the year and be like, wait a minute, we're selling this guy for less than $4 million.
Yeah, it really felt like, and again, FC Cincinnati has not announced that they're exercising the Luca Orellano purchase option yet. I don't really know why.
The timing might be deep in this contract. So
yeah,
they haven't announced any of their off season. Correct. Most of the time with the MLS, once you're bounced from the playoffs, you make some sort of an announcement about roster decisions.
I think they still have 10 days to do that.
Yeah. So I would expect that because the press conference said that they have a deadline of December 1st to exercise officially the option to buy Luca. And I think that it will probably be announced as part of the off-season roster news dump that they do.
Yeah, but wouldn't you just?
You could announce it.
If you're I would much rather have an announcement that they are buying Luca Orellano's contract than another letter from Carl Lindner after a trophyless season.
We did get that Player of the Month award, though.
Yeah, right. They got that Player of the Month award.
Well, I'd just like to note that through God, all things are possible. So, like that. Through all things being possible would also include picking up the option on Luca Orellano. So
right.
I do find it funny that, and sure, maybe the thinking changed at Vasco da Gama, but their fans could not be happier that he was leaving the club. They hated him. He was sent out to never be seen again. They were so excited to be done with him. And now all of a sudden there's a sort of seller's remorse with Luca that is very funny. The only thing I can think of is that they saw how well he did at Cincinnati and just sort of assumed they should be getting more money. I don't think they ever.
I mean, think about it from our perspective. Think about it from our perspective too. I'm not going to, name names or anything like that, but there were a non-insubstantial number of people who, after his first year here, wanted Lucho Acosta shipped out of FC Cincinnati, that he wasn't playing well, that he was a net negative to the team. And it turns out all he was a victim of poor coaching and overachieving on a coaching and tactical staff that was holding the entire roster and the entire team back. So, yeah, I would have buyer's remorse too if my team couldn't make full use of a guy that was an MLS best 11 player and scoring banger after banger on a weekly basis.
But also that's just like, I guess I don't know what exactly they're talking about with like the clauses they've never seen before or whatever.
Right.
But to some extent, he was a distressed asset.
Yeah.
Right. So, Vasco sold low. That happens sometimes, right?
Low, but still making a profit, right? Or would they've been breaking even?
I think they're about breaking even.
Okay.
But they could make a profit because I think he said that if we exercise the buy option, we get 60%. So Vasco would get 40% of a future sale. So I would expect they'll end up making a profit on the player, which, for somebody who you weren't using, who by all accounts had trouble adjusting to your team for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's tough to complain about to me.
Right. So sucks to suck. Happy to have Luca full time, assuming that does get announced. And speaking of,
also there was reporting that we're still in negotiations with Shakhtar. Involving Kevin Kelsey's future.
That's right.
We would, like to have him back, but the price is too high. Blah 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 blah. We'll see what happens there. I have no objection to bringing Kevin Kelsey back.
Oh yeah.
But if Shakhtar is like, no, 7 million, that's it. I wouldn't blame the team for thinking 7 million was too steep.
Yeah. 7 million gets you like some of those U22s that Miami signed, which I know, granted, they probably took some discounts there, but they give you like MLS.
I mean, 7 million gets you Diego Rossi.
Right. Yeah. I don't want $7 million for like a 4-year project to maybe be a competent starter. 7 million should be a day one starter, even at a U22 deal.
I think Kelsey's a good player with a lot of good qualities. I think he's still got a lot of potential he's got to realize. And so,
yeah,
I'm not going to be mad at the team if they decide that they're not going to pay 7 million.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't pay 7 million for him based on what we saw this year.
And you could talk about ambition, but honestly, you take that 7 million, crack it in two, you can get two players about as good as Kevin Kelsey for $3.5 million. Not saying you will, but you very easily
could. I think you're right. I think you're right.
Also, because we're a process-oriented podcast, I want it to be noted that if we decline Kevin Kelsey's option and he goes on to be develop into a great player later, you are not allowed to get mad, because the process by which we reached the decision that he wasn't worth 7 million was based on evidence on the field that he performed here in MLS against MLS competition. Yeah. And you are not allowed to then have we made a bad decision not keeping him. No, he was not worth the money. He showed that he was not worth the money. And just because you feel comfortable taking $7 million bets of other people's money on lottery tickets doesn't make it a great idea.
Yeah. Also, that goes for Vasco da Gama fans. Okay. You didn't know that Orellano was going to go on to be one of the best players in MLS. You can't get mad. Be happy with your $3.5-4 million.
100%. I think 2.8.
Okay.
2.8. Funnier.
Suckers.
We still have to exercise it.
Yeah, fair. And we'll see exactly.
I think it'd be silly not to, but
see exactly what the salary number is as well. But the expectation is,
we're saying this, and like Albright is cooking up some insane sign and immediately transfer to some big European club for $15-20 million.
If somebody is on the phone with Chris Albright and they're like, we'll give you $12 million for Luca Orellano. Yeah, awesome. Let's go.
So what would happen? What would happen theoretically? All right. So like this might be a situation kind of like a leased vehicle.
Charlotte did that with, I think, a DP before they started.
Birmingham City guy. Yeah.
They signed a guy like a year before, loaned him in the championship, and then he was really, really good, and they sold him at like a profit. He never played for them.
Think about this. Like, okay, so when you lease a vehicle, you put like a certain amount down, you have a certain amount of mileage, and then at the end of the lease, you get like the option to buy. They set the price ahead of time.
Right.
Well, like there are occasions where, because of the low amount of wear you put on the car, if it's like you're only driving at a certain amount, where the car actually has more value when the lease expires. And then like the dealership will pay you money for that car because they can sell it at a profit themselves. Is there a reality where it might make more sense where Vasco is like, okay, we value Luca at $8 million. That's what we would sell him for right now, where Chris goes to them and says, okay, you can have him back and we will not negotiate. We will not exercise the purchase option for $5 million.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like that's possible.
They can buy their own player back or buy their way out of the option with cash. And like, what would the
great thing about contracts?
What would the GAM conversion be for that? If you sold a team their own player back at the end of a loan?
That's Coast theorem, right?
Yeah.
Just you have defined contractual rights regarding like what team controls Luca Orellano's rights as a player, and whatever team values them the most will end up with them.
I just really like the
idea. If Vasco values them at $9 million,
then we'll
pay us not to exercise the option.
Yeah, we'll pay us $7 to not exercise the option, and then you can make $2 million selling them somewhere else.
Ooh, so it's not a transfer fee. Then what is it?
I don't know. I would like to know what bucket of money does this fall into for MLS purposes, and if this is not like otherwise specified in the rules, is there some way that Albright can like make this a direct conversion to GAM?
You know what you could do? You would, if it was enough money, Vasco da Gama has a cool logo with a ship. It's Vasco da Gama's ship, famous explorer. Put the ship logo as the patch on the FCC shirt. It's a sponsorship deal now, baby.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to figure out if there's a scenario where Albright has figured a way out and around, and he's like broken the fourth wall on MLS rules, and this money just doesn't exist anywhere and can just be used to pay something.
So the real move would be to sell. You somehow need to get the transfer fee to an MLS team that would otherwise not have $3.5 million in incoming transfer fee.
Can you trade Luca Orellano's purchase option to San Diego?
Yes.
For $3 million in GAM.
Yes.
And then they get the $7 million from Vasco,
which they then convert into GAM.
The $3 million.
They can probably convert 3.
Yeah.
Which they are then trading to us. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an acquisition cost. So
that's how you do it. You just need to find a team that doesn't have an incoming transfer sale or like incoming transfer money. It would
be like San Diego.
You do it to San Diego, and then they get like you can sweeten it for them. It's like, okay, you can convert up to $3 million. Was it $3 million in GAM?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so you convert this $3 million for us. You can keep $250 as like a finder's fee.
Sure.
Or like you can keep $300. You keep 10%. You send the other 90 back to us, and bam, we now have $6 million in GAM conversion this year.
Or better yet, send us 2 and you don't pick anybody in the expansion draft. See, it's just a little legal bribe there.
Or send us 2 and you have to take a certain player in the expansion draft. You must take Corey Baird in the expansion draft. Clear that salary off the books.
That would be
and you got to look at that. You've got an MLS proven veteran striker. You make $1 million in GAM. This is the ultimate win-win situation. I'm almost mad we're doing it for our hated rival, but you know, necessity makes strange bedfellows.
I never thought I would go into battle with San Diego.
Would you consider doing battle with a money laundering co-conspirator?
Oh God. Well, all right, just to round us out here, this first part, the expansion draft is a good transition here. There are a handful of windows or days that I want people to be made aware of as we enter the off season. As alluded to before this, the big one for FC Cincinnati is Wednesday, November 27th, 1 p.m. That is the club deadline to exercise options and submit offers to players. This is going to basically be the last possible date and time that teams will be announcing what they are doing with the players currently on the roster. I believe they are more than welcome to announce it before then. They just have to do it by November 27th at 1 p.m. So you have that. The teams that are still going in the playoffs will have until December 8th. That's important because December 9th is the half-day trade window, baby.
Oh, man. Get excited. Get hyped, guys.
That's Are we going live for the half-day?
Are we going live for the half-day transfer window?
9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on a Monday? Yes.
Like a 12:30 live show? Counting down to the end of the half-day transfer window?
I could do a lunch half-day trade window show. See if we can get Tom Bogert to come on for that one.
I believe it or not, I have absolutely nothing but free time available.
Has FC Cincinnati ever made a trade in the half-day window? I don't think so.
No, but we have been active in the re-entry draft before.
Yeah, we've lost players and gotten players in that before.
Yeah. Has anything ever happened in the half-day trade window?
Yeah, what is the biggest story in half-day trade window history? If we only have intern Luke around still, this could be a research project for him.
I'm sure somebody has been traded, but I bet you there's a bunch of trades that get worked out that just sort of get announced then, but would otherwise happen at any other time. And then the expansion draft is December 11th. We won't go into this now. This will be a fun activity later. But I will say we had been speculating earlier this year, would FC Cincinnati be exempt because they did have a player picked in the expansion draft by St. Louis. They tend to do these in pairs. Not the case. All 29 other MLS teams are up for selection. You can only lose one player. There are a ton of rules about who has to be protected and who can and cannot be picked. Like I said, we'll dive into that later. Just know, if you get picked, if one of your players gets picked, you get $50,000 in GAM as your compensation, which does not feel like enough. No matter who is getting picked, that feels woefully inadequate. Should probably be equivalent to the player's salary getting picked, but that would be my shooting from the hip idea. There's other dates. We don't need to worry about them after that, but that is sort of your general runway for the next couple of weeks. Is there anything else on the FC front that we need to touch on before heading on over to part 2?
How many players? I feel like we've lost a player in the expansion draft like every year that we've been eligible to lose a player.
Victor Uoa, I want to say, was picked in the expansion draft with Miami. Maybe not. But yeah, no, I do feel like we've had guys drafted before. Johnny Nelson obviously was St. Louis as the big one.
Alvis was selected
by Miami.
By Inter Miami.
That's who it was.
And then Johnny Nelson. So we did not get anybody selected in 22.
But that was usually because...
No, in 2021, we didn't have anybody selected.
Because in 20, we were picked, and so we were typically exempt.
No, in 19, we were picked. 20, we were exempt. 21, they just didn't pick any of our guys. And then 22, Johnny Nelson was picked by St. Louis.
And I want to say Joe Aquini was picked in the expansion draft by St. Louis.
Joe Aquini was a expansion draft pick as well, yes.
There you go. Wow. Oh, his loan deal with Como is
he's gone. He's gone.
So, yeah, if there was any thought to him sticking around or a secret purchase option, which we absolutely speculated about, that was not the case. So. Cool. All right. Well, let's head on over to part 2 and we'll get you out of here. And before we get to the next part of the episode, I want to tell you about our friends over at Cincy Shirts, as if you need me to tell you about them. Let's be real. If you are in the market for a t-shirt, dare I say, a Cincinnati-themed t-shirt, why are you looking anywhere else other than Cincy Shirts? They've got the best stuff. They've got awesome Reds, Bengals, FC Cincinnati gear. They've got all sorts of gear for your whatever you got going on, okay? That's how big and broad it is. You've got an old-timey classic amusement park that is your favorite from the Cincinnati area. I bet you they got a t-shirt about it. Did one of your old favorite franchises fold, or maybe a franchise you never got to see play fold? I bet you they've got a t-shirt for them. It's a really cool selection. I got to tell you, in-store is maybe the best way to go. They will print on site. You didn't hear it from me, but you can work out some special arrangements. Say you've got a design you really like, but you want it on the back of a shirt. I bet you could talk them into it. Okay. It's a good time. It's a really, really good shop. They're good people over there. You can find them in Loveland. You can find them in Oakley Hyde Park, and you can find them in Northern Kentucky, and they print online as well. They'll ship to you anywhere. Now, here's the best part. They sell gear for the post. That's right. You want an Opie shirt? They've got that. You want a one of the 12 shirt? They got that. You want to let folks know how you feel about San Diego? Boy, there is a shirt to show people that, okay? Check them out, Cincy Shirts. When you're there, use the promo code ThePostCincy. All one word, all caps. They'll knock 10% off of the entire order. That works on post gear as well. So please do not buy our stuff at full price. Okay, use the code, knock a couple bucks off for yourself. So thank you to Cincy Shirts for sponsoring this episode. Thank you, listener, for using the code. All right, we are back with your questions. We got to answer them, okay? Because the folks that are asking these questions paid us $2 to do so. That's right. You can support us on Patreon for the extremely high cost of $2 a month. You get to help make this show possible. You and Gold Star, by the way, working together. So that's pretty elite.
That's a
company.
Powerful combination. You and Gold Star.
You, Gold Star, Street Side, Cincy Shirts. I mean, these are people you want to be associated with.
The other thing I do want to point out about Gold Star,
please,
incredibly happy with the sponsorship. It is so heartwarming to have seen all the posts on the Discord of people going and supporting the podcast by having a delicious lunch or dinner at Gold Star Chili. Phenomenal. I've seen a wide range of menu options that people have been taking photos of. If you could do me a favor and put those up on X
public social media,
social media, and tag Gold Star and maybe the podcast, so that I love seeing it, but I would love them thinking that we have outsized influence in this space.
Yeah, I love seeing it. Make sure Gold Star loves
sees
seeing
it.
We
Yeah.
love having Gold Star as a sponsor. We would like to keep them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't have them forever, but
we could.
There might be the opportunity to extend that. Also, somebody in the Discord mentioned doing a live show from a Gold Star. I don't want to give anything away, but
That's
stay
possible.
tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Okay. Some meetings have been scheduled. All right. Just don't get your hopes up.
If you're from Gold Star listening to this, hop on over to Blue Sky too, so I can tag you on that with all sorts of this content.
It's getting annoying.
Yeah, because once FC Cincinnati signs Kevin Denkey, I'm off Twitter.
That's true.
I've made that promise.
Grayson has declared his line in the sand or whatever, the instigating moment. So anyway, Patreon questions, folks asked. So let's run through these. Scott Wilson says, hi, over the last week, my preferred presidential candidate and my favorite sports teams both lost. I don't really want to consume news for a while.
Condolences to Jill Stein.
Yeah.
And the FC won't be back until February. RFK Jr. fans.
I assume his team is Columbus Crew and his candidate was Jill Stein.
Yes. I was going to say
It's an
RFK
odd
Jr.
Patreon
fans.
odd combination for a Patreon subscriber, but it is what it is.
Interesting consolation prize out there. But he does ask, what are some ideas to occupy my time? New hobbies or activities to keep my mind occupied? This is a great question, Scott. The first one is continue to listen to the postcast. Obviously,
It's not getting any shorter, guys.
No, you would have thought the off season would.
Number two would be, go get outside and have yourself a great lunch or a great dinner at Gold Star. They got a lot of different menu options for how you're feeling on any given day. You want something a little lighter, they got salads. You want something heavy, you get a burger with some chili on it. They're both delicious. I've tried them both.
The milkshakes are intense. Yeah. Good luck with those.
If that's not enough for you, then maybe you hit up Street Side and just throw a few back until you can't feel feelings or you can't think about what's going on in the world.
While you're at Street
Side is also on the bike trail.
Yep.
So you can go biking every 3 to 6 miles. There's a bar or brewery.
Yeah.
Also on the bike trail is Cincy Shirts in Loveland. So
yes.
You could do some retail therapy. Yeah. Street Side has the Cincy Street Faced beer. So there's a lot you could get into, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott, if you want an actual genuine recommendation.
These are all actual genuine answers.
These are the best answers.
I just bought, I was at, this is stolen valor. My wife was at Roebling Books today, getting a cup of coffee. And picked me up a copy of Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. So if anybody wants to read Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, we can chat.
Maybe we get
a book club going.
Maybe we get a book club
like an actual book club going, like not a bit.
I think actually, yeah. I know we've talked about it in the Discord a bit.
Is this it? Are we starting it?
I'm throwing it out there.
Okay.
Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. If people are interested in reading the book, having some conversation about it, we can create a channel. Let us know in the culture channel.
Yeah, that feels like a good
of the Discord. And then we'll figure out how that is organized.
Yeah, the mechanics
D&D
will be a little
also will take a bunch of time.
Oh,
you can get into D&D.
On the D&D point, I was going to actually suggest single player pen and paper RPGs are an option out there. There's a ton of different ones out there. I'll link some again in the culture channel in the Discord. It's sort of a solitaire D&D. There's some systems you can use. There's one that's actually built entirely in Excel, which you can play around with. So yeah.
The thing that I find it good in these situations is that whenever and this is a legitimate answer, pick something that you've always wanted to learn to do or do and just start. just start watching YouTube videos about it or read some stuff about it. It can be something that like is somewhat productivity related. Like I've always wanted to learn how to do Photoshop, or I've always wanted to learn how to make videos or something like that. Or I want to learn how to use Excel, and just do it. And like whenever I've had issues where I've needed to like work through some stuff in my life, learning to do something, it's a tremendously productive time waster, because then at the end of it, when you're done, it's I have acquired some new skill. And it's better than doom scrolling on your phone, or even like it's better than just, playing video games or sitting binge watching a TV show. So think about whatever it is. And this is like if you're genuinely, and there's a lot of people out there having a tough time with the way life is right now. I get it. Pick something that you've always wanted to learn, or pick a hobby, or pick a thing that you have been putting off doing, and just start it. Especially good during the holiday season, because shit gets stressful, and it's a perfect excuse to not socialize when the battery is worn out a little bit.
So here's what I did today. Okay. I went to the driving range. I was hitting the shit out of the ball, I will tell you. I had a great day at the driving range. Went to the symphony.
Nice.
Shostakovich. Bangers. I'm not a big like classical music expert, but I will say when it goes hard.
Yeah.
And then went to a new restaurant in Covington, had some after dinner drinks, and now I'm recording a podcast with my best good friends.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
What a Sunday.
Just do that. Scott Wilson. All right. You'll be set. Also, there's probably no greater skill that goes across any and all careers, jobs, anything that is quite as impactful as getting good at Excel. If you are able to create a pivot table without Googling anything, you're already in the top 5% in your office, whatever the office is.
Don't even know what a pivot table is.
See, you'd be better than Chief.
Which is not saying much. So aspire for higher.
Maybe in a similar vein, people were feeling themselves over the last week or so in the Patreon. Justin Keller asks, "Why do we do this to ourselves?"
Because sometimes you just got to feel.
Yeah,
just got to feel. It proves that you're alive. When you're not feeling, we're done.
A part of being in a tribe, which is what sort of sports culture allows you to be a part of, is experiencing highs together, but also experiencing lows together. You are having a bad, sad time, but you're not by yourself. Lots of other people are having a bad, sad time with you. And there's something nice about that.
Yeah. John Gruden used to have a saying, you got to love misery in sports. He had a lot of other sayings that probably aren't great, but like you got to love. A lot
of emails you don't want to read.
A lot of, you know what, boy, Hillary Clinton took the bullet for emails that was meant for John Gruden.
Plenty of bands had one hit, right? Like,
love misery. You got to love misery. When you're in sports, you've got to love the misery. And I think that's like misunderstood at times, where it's like, you got to embrace the fact that it's going to be shit 99% of the time. Like, unless you are one of the lucky few that ends up rooting for a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or the New York Yankees. And even if you're a Yankees fan, they haven't won anything of note in 30 years. You've just got to embrace that life's kind of shitty. Yeah. And sports are this perfect outlet for which you can process the fact that life is an never-ending timeline of, I didn't get what I want. I didn't like it. I didn't have a good time. But I'm still here. I made it out the other side, and I was doing it with my friends. So
yeah,
just embrace the misery.
I like
part of life is being willing to have like an authentic engagement with something. Like not couching it in like self-deprecation or sarcasm or one of the various like defense mechanisms that we all employ. And it is like, if you want to have like a real relationship with a person, for example, you have to be able to have just like a frank, like literal interaction with them. You have to be able to like share a real feeling, not knowing how they're going to experience that or how they're going to react to that. Right. And so you have to risk
vulnerability. You have to risk vulnerability.
You have to risk like it not going the way you prefer. You have to risk feeling bad. You have to risk things, going poorly. But, that risk is what makes you experience like the real joy, right? When things go well, and if you only are guarded, if you don't put yourself in a position where you can't be hurt, you're never going to experience any of the highs.
Yes. And that is
like the genuine highs.
Yes. The last place finish years were tough, but it made the supporter shield that much more fun.
Also, now nobody can hurt us.
No.
Yeah.
Like no other team can say anything about us that's going to get to us.
No, we're bulletproof now. Like, I'm upset that we lost, but it's like,
that wasn't fun.
It wasn't fun. That sucked. It sucked even worse last year. But you know what? I'd still rather be us than the team that doesn't even get the shot. Yeah. Mired in the basement, not doing anything, low ambition ownership. Where, we're getting people to send text messages to Tom Bogert. And I get winning the press conference ain't as much fun as winning the title, but I would rather be winning something and trying to win something. And what's funny about all this is that, like, I'm as guilty of this as the next person, of dooming and glooming this team sometimes. But I expect this team is going to win next year. I don't expect this team is going to suck. I expect they will figure something out to win because we have exceptionally talented people in charge, and we have an ownership group that enjoys invoking the name of our Lord and praising success as opposed to excusing failure.
I will take it. On a similar note, Brock Bermel asks, what's your favorite inspirational quote? I think this is an interesting one. I don't know if you guys are quotes guys. I don't know if you have a hang in there poster in the office with a kitty hanging from a branch or anything. I don't know. Do you have a maybe not a quote per se, but a saying or a mantra or something that you come back to in your life?
Grayson feels like a quote guy.
I am not a quote guy.
I figured if anyone in the group that would have a quote right off hand, that it would be you on this, something that was like meaningful or inspirational.
No, I'm like, I don't like quotes. I don't like the LinkedIn post kind of thing. I don't get inspired really by like
a single line of text.
Yeah. I get inspired. I'm more of like an experience person. Like I like fully fleshed out like stories. Or I like going through stuff and like kind of like reflecting on it and saying like, oh, what happened here?
Yeah.
So I guess do or do not, there is no try.
I was about to say the same fucking thing. That's so weird.
Wow.
That is so weird.
I guess that's the answer.
That is the answer. That is very much the answer.
That was a very funny preamble to giving an awesome answer, by the way.
Yeah. Somehow Palpatine returned. That's my
quote.
They fly now.
You know what?
It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we weren't ready for the smoke is what the answer was there.
Somehow he's returned. There isn't really a good question or answer to the somehow.
You could ask what the somehow was, but it turns out it's just a really, really boring dystopic process that leads to it. And just you're better off with Oscar Isaac's just hand waving it for you within the first reel.
Those are good. I think this is incredibly cliche right now, but I like the memento mori You are going to die. Remember your death. And I find a lot of relief in optimistic nihilism. That in 100 years, nobody will care about any of the conversations you're having, any of the thoughts you're having.
This is very similar to the answer Mike Tyson gave to that little girl when he was being interviewed ahead of the fight.
Oh, I'm gonna die.
I'm gonna die. She asked what he wants his legacy to be,
Yeah.
and his answer was like long-winded to the effect of, and this was a child interviewing him. Legacy means nothing. I don't care about legacy. I'm gonna die. When I'm dead, no one's gonna remember me. It was just like, it was this horrendously dark answer. It was just like, man, Iron Mike got a little philosophical out of his $10 million payday.
Yeah, no, I especially, it's helpful with work stuff. You get stressed out about work, and then you just have a moment, you go, none of this fucking matters. This is all stupid.
Yeah. Except the postcast, this matters.
Except for the postcast, this is the only thing that matters. I've only got 2 more questions for us. Key asks, this is a very funny one. When you go to the grocery, what's the one essential item on your list that isn't something like milk or eggs? For example, I always have to have a supply of oyster crackers. Key mentioned a forbidden brand name on these oyster crackers, by the way. But
yeah, we don't recognize that. Ooh, this is a good question. I'm a sucker for, I know this is real basic. I love those Dots pretzels. And as long as they're not $7.99 a bag, I'll find a way to throw one of those in.
The honey mustard ones are a real weakness for me.
Yeah. So like I'll throw those in, just because. Hot sauce. I always think I need more hot sauce than I do. Like, so whenever I'm at the grocery store, I always buy some type of hot sauce.
Yeah.
Ignorant to the fact I've got like 5 opened bottles chilling in the fridge. So
we do the same thing with eggs. I always think, we're probably running low on eggs, which I know was like explicitly stated in the question. We always have like 4 cartons of eggs in our fridge. There's no reason to have that many eggs. But the one item that is always, I always got to pick up. I am a big fan of the Ollie Pops, the probiotic sodas. I've really enjoyed those. Grayson, do you have a grocery staple?
Yeah, red onion.
Always just gotta have a red onion.
I'm always, I feel like I'd never go to the grocery store and without including a red onion in what I'm buying. I use a lot of red onion.
Is the red onion your go-to onion here?
Yeah, actually, when I make Cincinnati chili at home, I use a red onion instead of I like the spice. Like I think it adds like a spice to your.
As a raw onion, I agree. The red onion is the best onion, so I would co-sign that decision. And then the last question, and this is a great one. I went ahead and came up with some answers ahead of time, just because this could take a moment to think about. Ags Kwan asks, I had to really think about, make sure that wasn't like something else. If you were creating an FCC iceberg, what are 1 or 2 things you would each include on the bottom tier? So if people are not familiar, I should probably set this up and give you guys a moment to think about this. The sort of lore iceberg that exists out there, where at the top of the iceberg are like the funny things or the things that everybody knows. Like in our case, in FCC world, it would be like Aaron Bupenza getting punched by an amateur boxer, right? Getting his jaw broken by an amateur boxer would be at the top of the iceberg. You would work your way down to like, I'm trying to think of like a FCC squirrel is one that was out there. People made like an account for the squirrel that was running away from the grounds crew one time at Nippert, or the individual broke his leg on the Nippert bleacher in the Bailey. That's kind of a funny moment. There are these sort of like characters or things that become known by fewer and fewer people, or it's a much like, sometimes it even gets darker, the story, as it goes further down the iceberg, usually done in about 4 or 5 tiers. I think I'm describing this correctly. Do you have ideas as to what would be at the bottom of the FCC iceberg? particularly the FCC fan iceberg.
So I had to look up what a fan iceberg was.
Yes.
Or a lore iceberg. And I found one for Star Wars.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, the bottom of the iceberg, I consider myself a big nerd and a big Star Wars nerd. I don't know what any of these are.
That's good. So,
like, on one part of the iceberg, like a couple stages up, is just Lorem Ipsum, which is like the replacement text on Photoshop when you click to like open a new text box. And I don't know if there's actually a Lorem Ipsum in Star Wars or if the person making this iceberg just created a text box and just left it in there. Okay, so like if you want the bottom of the iceberg where like, you know, the fish that have the lights on are like hunting down that deep for FC Cincinnati lore, I mean, it's got to get pretty...
I've got a couple here for you.
Okay, you start then.
And these might only be designed to let Chief laugh, okay? The first one is Bailey boxes. Oh. And the accompanying T-shirt.
Yeah, that was almost a thing. They should we explain these as we go along?
You can explain this one. The other ones, I don't think you're going to be allowed to explain.
Fair enough. All right. So this one was when the initial renderings for TQL Stadium were presented to fans, there was two competing ideologies as to how the new Bailey would be designed.
Yeah.
There was the first thought was that it would just be a straight recreation of what we had at Nippert, but bigger, in the way of that the Bailey at Nippert's like the first row was what, 15 feet, 20 feet up in the air, give or take. And so, you know, if you did that, you would have unused space underneath it. And the plan was to build basically luxury suites underneath where the Bailey is. That would have been the Bailey boxes where people with a, you know, 7-figure, 8-figure yearly income could spend to kind of experience being on the supporter section, but like underneath it, away from all the dirty pores that were inhabiting above. And
kind of what they built on the other side.
Yeah, a little bit. A little similar to that. But there was significant pushback by the supporters. With the idea that they wanted everything to be at field level so that people could run over, there could be celebrations, you'd be closer to the action, closer to behind the net. And so the Bailey boxes didn't become a thing, but that was...
There was a big battle behind the scenes. There were
some interesting conversations behind the scenes on that one.
Yeah, that's one too that, like, especially having been a part of some of those conversations, I will say FCC ownership and frankly, Jeff Birding earned a lot of credibility in my mind because they took money off of their table in listening to the fans and designing the Bailey. They could have told everybody to shove it and put those Bailey boxes in there, and they didn't.
And you know, honestly, if it would have been presented to people as this is the income that will allow us to sign better players and do all this sort of stuff, it's kind of hard to argue with that in the room when it's not your money and it's like, oh, you mean this will earn however many hundreds of thousands of dollars a match or however millions of dollars a year. They didn't do it. They pulled it and they're like, you're right. This is what the fans want. We want this to be fans first. So yeah, that was cool that actually turned out right. Because you know what the other thing too is? I don't want rich people sitting underneath me. No. They complain about noise, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, the drums
down.
Yeah, turn the drums down. It's rattling my cocktail, and I don't need that at a sporting event.
Or the first time somebody spills a beer from the Bailey onto somebody in the Bailey box, potentially, you know, ruining their view, would have been a problem.
I mean, I guess one of my answers can be, you know, megaphones almost killing clubs' PR directors. That was falling from the Bailey. Continue with what else you have, Kevin. I want to hear what else you have.
That is a good one. Frosty fan fiction. I think a lot of people are going to be...
I'm not explaining that one at all.
Nope. People are going to be familiar with the image that has become associated with this. I feel like what is missed is the thousands of words that accompanied not one, but at least two fan fictions. Another one that Chief we cannot explain for the life of us. I'm just going to say the words nip-nops. There you go.
Yeah.
And then one more that I can't explain.
Yeah. Oh man.
Boy,
folks! People are going to come into the Discord and going to ask about it. I'm telling you, this is going to be harder to get than the punk rock joke.
It is illegal to know the answer to
yes,
that one.
It is illegal to know the answer to that.
Oh boy.
Number 4, and this one we can't explain, but it's just, I think it's at the bottom of the iceberg because it's a story that more people should know about. It's wacky, wavy, inflatable arm tube men. And Chief, I will allow you to explain this one if you would like.
Yeah. I say we, members of the FC Cincinnati Drum Corps, specifically one who's been a guest on this podcast before, snuck in a car battery and 2
already there is great story.
A car battery and 2 wacky waving inflatable arm tube men by hiding the fans inside bass drums they had cut open, and then used electrical cord that they had also snuck in to power and set off 2 tube men at Louisville when we scored a goal. And the funny part about it is this plan was supposed to go off at one match, and then they canceled the match due to rain and inclement weather. So we had it all set up for one game where there were going to be a lot of people, and it ended up happening at like a makeup game on like a Saturday afternoon, like 3 months later. But everything had already been purchased. They're like, we're going to do this anyway.
There are a handful of photos in one brief moment on the broadcast where you can actually see them. But yes, deploying wacky, wavy, inflatable arm tube men in an opposing team stadium at a rival is just so good. And again, like a lot of people know the streamer story, which I think would be like a middle iceberg tier.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that the wavy arm is so much funnier and then just never got the props it deserved, it ends up at the bottom of the iceberg here.
Grayson, what were your contributions here to base lore FC Cincinnati?
There's an argument for D. Pridengard to be at the bottom of the iceberg here.
Yeah, there's an argument. So I don't know if it's at the very bottom, but something that I've often gotten like a kick out of. Mike Grella.
Yes.
Mike Grella was like at some point like an employee of FC Cincinnati. He was like listed on the website as like a scout, but he was also doing like Paramount stuff on Paramount Plus. And I'm not sure I've ever seen the team like acknowledge whether or not he's ever been an employee or like what he might have ever done like at the team or whatever. So like just I guess like for me, like Mike Grella being a FC Cincinnati employee is on the list.
They never announced his hire or departure.
Right. Yeah.
I want to say.
I don't think they announced any of it. The other one is so in the last off season, Jeff Birding visited the Argentine club Talleres.
Oh yeah.
And that club like announced some kind of partnership with like FC Cincinnati, or there was something along those lines. I'm trying to dig back at it, but I don't think
we never announced anything.
I don't think FC Cincinnati like ever acknowledged it on our end. Like I don't think FC Cincinnati even acknowledged like Birding going down there,
right?
In any capacity. And that's just like that's a thing that I get a little bit of a kick out of.
their fans probably treat that relationship with us like we treat the relationship with Hoffenheim.
What's the Ghanaian team that we have a partnership
Heart
with?
of Oak.
Heart of Oak.
Hearts of Oak.
Yeah, Hearts of
Now,
Oak.
we've at least signed like 2 or 3 of those guys to the FCC2
That's
team.
true. That's true.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Secret website, is that mid iceberg or bottom?
Pretty good.
Or bottom?
That's mid.
I think it's probably mid iceberg. I would think it's like more people reference that. I think
it's a 4 out of 5. I would say some of it too is just like it happened so long ago,
right?
That like
where it's not as like obscure reference. It's kind of like Kai Kamara being an FC Cincinnati player. Like I feel it gets referenced often enough that like even though it would otherwise be a pretty obscure, we signed him and then immediately traded him on the expansion draft. I think that would be.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, here's one. I'll make Kevin laugh. So tell me about apartheid.
Oh, jeez. Look, I aspire to give interviews like that.
I have not been able to find evidence of this, but I have in my memory, Paul Doherty at a press conference with Jurgen Locadia after Locadia's signing, where Doherty told Locadia, he's like, you're a rapper, you make rap music. And Locadia being like,
remember that.
Like rap music. What? Because Locadia is not a rapper. He's a DJ.
DJ makes
like club music.
Beats.
Yeah, he made like beats. Yeah.
All right. In much the same vein, Kevin, it's a good day. You still got to work.
Oh my God. What was that? Lance Lang?
It was Lance Lang.
Lance Lang
celebrating on social media Alan Koch's firing.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I think he deleted that video pretty shortly thereafter.
Timed in such a way.
Today is a good day.
It's a good day.
Tommy Heinemann's knees or Tommy Heinemann medical.
I thought about
exam.
that. I feel like that's higher
pretty
up.
Yeah.
There's some, if you go back in time on Twitter, there's some hilarious posts from the old FCC social media. Man the wall hashtag.
Oh, jeez. Jesus. Wow, it's been a while.
Wow.
It's been a while.
We get going down memory lane, and all of a sudden I'm getting called by my government name right here.
You'll find out why, because I was going to say Nashville's famous player Big Bird.
Oh yeah,
was certainly a good moment of lore for this team.
There's so much.
There's some good stuff. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I have wanted to do, I find supporters' documentaries to be self-aggrandizing and awful. Mm-hmm. Having said that,
you want to do one?
Yeah. Or just like some of these stories just need to get like some of these stories just need to be like recorded. Yes. And whatever happens with them. But shit, like this club in 10 years has produced some utter nonsense.
Yes.
And like the fan base around this club has produced some utter nonsense. And I mean that in the best possible way of just like, I'm going to eventually feel sorry for the people that weren't around during the USL era. And especially the people that like, you might've gone to games, but if you're really into this team now and you weren't during the USL era, there is no substitute for how profoundly stupid and incredibly fun being involved with this team in the USL era was. Like,
there's probably an entire iceberg dedicated to anything and everything Jonah did. Like with all of KLR, but then I was thinking of like Hot Topic skeleton gloves is a really good moment. There's some really good moments.
Like just even some stupid stuff. Like nobody brought paint to TIFO painting night. We all ended up just watching a CFL game in a building. Or like the design wasn't ready and we just all are watching like CFL football because there's nothing else to do. Because we showed up.
Build It Here banner.
Build
That's
It
a
Here.
Good one.
Yeah. Yeah, you know,
Rheingeist flag in the Bailey.
Toyota flag
in the March.
in the March. There, Bill Grindesto. I mean,
that's a good one. Man,
there was some funny shit, man. Like,
yeah,
the time they held the march to avoid being involved in a publicity stunt on the field.
Pat Brennan getting locked into the Harrisburg City Islanders Stadium.
Pat Brennan being arrested
during the BLM
during the
stuff,
the protests. Yeah, it's been. You know what? Okay, let's do this.
Okay.
In the off season, now that we're in the off season,
we're here.
Sometime in the next couple of weeks,
we'll release the away day.
No, I don't want that released.
I needed to take some time away from Final Cut Pro. We'd been seeing too much of one another over the course of the past 2 months. We should just open the floor, like non-Patreon question episode, like ask your questions about the USL early days, and let's get like a couple of the old heads on the show, and let's just do like a 5-person, 6-person. We're just answering what, like, if you were ever curious about this part of the USL era or how this tradition started or how this thing was, we can do like a retrospective. I think that would be a lot of fun on this.
Yeah, especially with like the 10th anniversary of the club coming up. And by all indications, they're going to do some sort of nod to the first USL team or the USL era generally in the upcoming year. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that.
There you go.
All right. Well, this Sunday night football game has gotten a lot closer. So I think that I know, at least I can tell by the reactions from Grayson that he's eager to go off and give this his full attention.
Chief, get us out of here quickly.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Especially today, even though it's not San Diego.
Right now. Fuck yourself right this instant.
Right now.
Still San Diego in our hearts.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. Also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to the show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.